Hello, everyone. It's Chris Rubio again, talking at his computer. How are you? I sincerely hope you're doing well. Um, so, the number one problem in America. I actually think this is not just America. I think it's all over the world since we've been dealing with this glut of information from our media and social media for the past 10, 15 years. Um, I started this channel to try to look for solutions as best as I can figure them anyway. I'm just one person. But we've done enough screaming at each other, I believe, and I think we should try to look for something for us to come together. Maybe something we can agree upon. Or maybe we can examine our lives in some kind of way and make things better. And I've come upon one, I think, fundamental problem is that we're all falling victim to something called confirmation bias. Now, what is confirmation bias? I will read you a definition. Confirmation bias is the tendency to search for, interpret, and recall information in a way that supports what we already believe. I'm going to read it one more time. Confirmation bias is the tendency to search for, interpret, and recall information in a way that supports what we already believe. So, we're a real world example would be, say for instance, I believe that the cities are going to hell. Cities are a hellscape of drugs and addiction and people on the street, and it's terrible. And I go around on, say, YouTube and look for evidence from 10 different cities around the country of people living on the street and doing drugs and getting arrested, and it's terrible. And then I line it up, make a video, and say, look, see how terrible things are? Look at all these cities. Look at all these bad things happening. Well, that's because I started with a belief that things are bad in cities, and I look for evidence to support that belief. Or I could just as easily turn that around and look for evidence of, I don't know, some people talking to each other on the street corner and laughing, hey, how are you, Charlie? Or helping a lady across the street, or your friend's window's broken and somebody says, hey, let me help you fix that window. And I could have evidence of that around the same 10 cities and say the cities are this wonderland of diverse people interconnected and helping one another and living better lives. Because I started with the belief that things are actually better. So whatever belief you have, you can always cherry pick information which supports that belief. And then people get swirled into this reality. They hyper focus on a select bit of information, and then they say, see what's happening? If it's white supremacy in America, you can point to these groups, a couple here and a couple there, and some terrible person holding up burning a cross or something, and say, look, see what's happening in America? Yes, there are examples of white supremacy in America, but there are also many, many more examples of people not being horrible racists. Or if you're on the right and you think the transgenderism it's sweeping the country and the children are you can find examples. You can say, I don't like drag queens and talking to my children, and you can show and see in this school, they did this in this school, and in this school there, and in that school there. See, it's happening everywhere. I understand. I've fallen victim to it myself. I still go back to a good friend of mine who once said, challenge your assumptions. And if you're watching this video, I would send that right back at you. I understand why people do it. I understand why I've done it. It makes you feel safe. It makes you feel certain about the world. But it's not reality. The only way we can, and this is where I'm turn the corner into trying to look for the solution. The only way is to try, at least, to say, okay, can I step back a little bit and look at what the big picture is? Have things been getting better or worse over, say, a 20-year time span? It doesn't change the pain that somebody goes through when they have a problem in 2023. But are things getting better or are they getting worse? All this is saying, trying to move towards critical thinking about the world around us. That's what I'm asking for. critical thinking, and being aware of confirmation bias and when that can happen is a way to start thinking critically about the world, to not get caught up in your emotions, but to say, okay, all right, I feel this way, okay, but what's the reality? What's the reality? What's really happening? Not what have I cherry picked to support my beliefs, but how are things overall? It's not as sexy. It's not as romantic. It doesn't give you the same kind of certainty, but it's more in line with reality, and hopefully we can all start to move towards living together in reality as it actually is, instead of how we feel it is, or we've come to be convinced that it is. If you like these videos I'm making, I would ask you please to subscribe and hit the little notification bell. And please comment. And it helps the channel grow. And I would love to interact with you about whatever you have to say. As always, I'm Chris Rubio, asking you to please think it over.